divestment, like in South Africa, what would put pressure on this, to end apartheid. Does that make any sense? Like, is that why hasn't America moved to that, or why hasn't UN nations moved towards putting pressure on Israel to do the right thing here?
My God, that's a great question. I mean, look at what happened to this UN official who released a report using the word apartheid for the very first time in the UN agency about Israel. And he resigned because there was so much pressure. The UN had to come out and say, oh, we had nothing to do with this report. That was some fringe outlier who wrote this. I mean, it is so insane, the international pressure, because, Tim, it all comes back to the US empire. I think that the situation would be completely different if the U.S. just wasn't such staunch allies and completely funded this brutal occupation and apartheid state. I think that BDS is the only way to move forward, and I honestly know that now after being there. And I think that after being there, and I mean, I spoke to dozens and dozens and dozens of Israeli citizens because I kept wanting to find people who could comment on the two-state solution, who could comment on, how there's hope for change within Israeli society. But unfortunately, talking to so many people, you realize how far right the country has gone over the last 30 years, where people are normal now and mainstream now that were considered completely insane wackos. Hey, sounds familiar, right? Now we have Christian evangelicals running our country.
Yes.
But no, it really is. Either you look at South Africa, white supremacists are never going to stop and say, hey, you know what? We're white supremacists. We're racist as hell. We're going to actually stop apartheid. No one is going to do that. They need to have forced from outside the pressure to make them change. That's the only way they can, Tim, because after talking to dozens and dozens and dozens of Israelis, like I said, leftist is a slur. To be considered liberal and in the Labor Party, you just want a more humane occupation. There's no ending the occupation. There's no legitimate two-state solution. It's just, oh, yeah, Palestinians are treated horribly. Maybe the occupation should be more humane.
What is this about home? Like, they would take people's homes. Like, I don't, like, Abby, I'm sorry, I don't get it at all. You put these people into tents, then they end up in caves, these like stone homes, and then now they come in and take the homes. I'm totally like not getting it.
Yeah, so in 1948, when Israel was created, right, it was this colonial settler state just literally created on top of a country in the middle of the Middle East. Great idea, guys. Plop a European settler state right in the middle of a bunch of Arabs. What could go wrong? Oh, my God. So, of course, the next year, there was a full-blown war, of course, because when you do that and you ethnically cleanse tons of people, obviously people are going to be upset. So there was a lot of friction. But then there was a massacres on behalf of the Israeli militias and the official military at the time. I mean, tens of thousands of people fled. That's when you hear this whole right to return as a refugee, because the original borders of Israel, they've been so much, the West Bank was originally given to Palestinians, and it's been annexed so much where you look at the West Bank now, I think everyone's seen that kind of map where it's like in 4 sections or 3 sections where you can see the original state of Israel, and to today, it's just dots. I mean, that's how much more land that they've annexed. And so, yeah, they started off in tents for a long time. And I've talked to some Palestinians who said our biggest mistake was actually leaving these tents into these official concrete UN buildings because people stopped seeing us as refugees. He was like, we should have stayed in the goddamn tents, because then at least the world would look at us and say they're still homeless. They cannot return to their homes, that literally settlers would come and steal homes, and they would be living in tents just 3 miles from where their house was taken over by settlers. So, I mean, they've been living there ever since, and they just say, I want to go back to my village 5 miles away, and I'm still waiting for people to help us do that. It's devastating.